The street, you do remember last week on Friday, they held their first under Manos, and one thing led to another, and 6 lives were lost. So we shouldn't be heading down that route. But tomorrow, they say that they will still be on the street to oppose, among other things, the Kenya Kwanza regime on taxes and more specifically on the Finance Act. And still on the Azimio, they've talked about getting about 10 to 15 million signatures. Well, we'll be looking at that as well. And something else that happened in the political sphere is that the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal declared the ouster of Jeremiah Kioni as the Secretary General of Jubilee and leaving Kanini Kega faction to lead the former ruling party. Remember, Jubilee is squarely in Azimio One Kenya coalition. What does this mean? And what are some of the reprieves that the ousted group can also go to court, or how can they be addressed? And today, remember, it's the Africa Anti-Corruption Day. So today we have a packed show. And allow me to introduce my first guest. Just on my immediate left, we have Joshua Mbidi Mwalio. Honorable Joshua Mbidi Mwalio is the MP for Masinga, who was elected on an independent ticket. But he has decided to align himself with the Kenya Kwanza government and President William Ruto. Mheshimiwa, karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
And it's also good to point out that you are also a member of the House Business and the NGCDF.
I'm a member of the House Business Committee and NGCDF and the Trade and Industry Committee.
Yes, and Trade and Industry as well.
Yes, yes.
And maybe something that I noted in this Finance Act is that the NGCDF is more or less going to get a bigger boost. And I've seen some of the MPs have decided to channel a huge chunk of that money to education. Maybe you can start with that.
Yes, to give you the background is that NGCDF gets the share of 2.5% of the national revenue after the accounts have been given their share. Then the 2.5% is taken from the national government share. So whatever amount increases in the national share, then we also get the 2% percent also goes up. So this time it has gone up, and we are happy that it is increasing our development, and also our bursaries are going up. Just to let you know, bursary is pegged on 25% up to 35%, up to 30th June 2022-2023. But now, as from 1st of July, we have been able to enhance it to 40%, from 25% to 40%, because we are looking at a situation whereby places like Northeastern, where there is a lot of drought, and also Lower Eastern, some parts of Lower Eastern, that children don't go to school because they have not eaten even at home. So we need to feed them in the school so that they can be able to know, even if they lack food at home, there will be lunch in the school. So that is why we have been able to take it to 40% of the allocation of each constituency to be able to cater for food. For those who have no problem with the farming, then they can be able to allocate them fully to their bursaries, so that they can be able to educate as many children and sponsor as many poor children as possible to school. Yes.
Yes, and it's a good thing that education is eating up a lot, and especially now that we have a drought. And we also be joined a little bit later, just in a few minutes, by Alex Mola, who is a constitutional lawyer and also a leadership and governance expert. We know that the Finance Act is squarely in the hands of a 3-judge bench, as directed by High Court Judge Mugure Ndande yesterday. And that, according to Kenya Kwanza government, have argued that this could derail the operations of government. Allow me now to bring in the lawyer, Alex Mola. Karibu sana wakili.
Asante sana.
And thank you so much for making time.
Thank you too.
Yes, yesterday a lot of Kenyans thought maybe the decision by the High Court would be either to start using the Finance Act of 2023 or to go back to the appointing authority, which is the president, then to parliament. But that did not happen. We were surprised to find that the issue raised just that the High Court declared that was quite hefty and raises a number of issues that needs to be looked keenly according to the Constitution. What do you make of that? The three-judge bench. And do we have that to kind of take a little bit longer?
Yeah, I think, first of all, the thing that Kenyans have to appreciate is that as a country, we have come from afar. And yesterday's ruling, which is basically, of course, is an interim order, is a ruling that, as much as it's very painful to the government, and it will be very, very painful for the running of the affairs of the government, is an assertion of where we are as a country, and that we are a country run by the rule of law. Because we are either a country of laws or none. And so what the judge said yesterday, and she had already given interim orders before, which were just confirmed, that some of the things Okiya Omtata and others are arguing is that this bill was supposed to be presented to the Senate. And that is a requirement not just of the statute but of the Constitution. The Constitution had already provided for it. And so if this was not done, and indeed they presented the various provisions, including housing levy, that touched on the mandate of the Senate. And so if this was not done, then it means that the Constitution was violated. And so then it means that this has to be suspended. We could see the argument of the CS for Treasury and the AG that the government is going to shut, which is partly true, because now the government, this regime cannot be able to collect 211 billion shillings that it targeted through the amendments that this Finance Act was going to have. But that being the case, even though we need that money for the development, because the budget stipulated the kind of things the president and his government want to do, those things have to be done within the law. And so yesterday's ruling, to me, it is an affirmation of where we've come from, the independence of the judiciary, because perhaps some people thought that the judiciary will be cowed and perhaps give a ruling that is more convenient. Yesterday was a ruling between the conveniency and the rule of law. And so the judge felt that this is an important matter that needs a panelment of a three-judge bench to look at it. It will still be a decision of the High Court. What we are expecting to see is that, and that was expressed by Somane when he was making his submissions at the end of the ruling, that they are going to make an appeal to the Court of Appeal to see if this can be reversed. Yeah.
And Mheshimiwa, being aligned to the Kenya Kwanza regime, and you saw what happened, you are the guys who passed the Finance Act. Some people have argued that when it comes to certain issues like the Finance Act, the three arms of government, that is the legislature, judiciary, and the executive, are and should be independent. But they're talking about this could be seen as an interference of the judiciary for something like the Finance Act. I would like to weigh your words on that.
Thank you very much. You see, although they are independent, the three arms of government are independent, but they work together. And therefore, one checks the others. The judiciary has to check whether the rule of law is being obeyed. And if it is not, then they have a say. And that is what they have said yesterday. So let's say, as the lawyer has said, that there will be a lot of to and fro, and also words will, people will exchange a lot of words. But at the end of the day, that we are going to harmonize ourselves, because we need the money. We need the money, but according to the Constitution, then we need this to be done in the right way. So That is what the judiciary is trying to say, that let's do things right, so that once we have done them right, there is no problem. Because if you check the last year, which ended on 30th June, there was no development because we do not have money. So this finance bill was to collect money for the country to go forward, and this regime of governance can be able to do whatever they promise the Kenyans they will do, and that cannot be done without money. So that is what they are trying to achieve. But let's see what will happen, because the three bench will be appointed. They will bring in their wisdom of three. This was the wisdom of one. So let's see what the wisdom of three will bring on board.
And I would also like to pick your mind on this. Some of the legislators allied to the Kenya Kwanza regime have talked about the judiciary kind of overstepping their mandates, and some even have thrown salvos and some stones to the judiciary, so to speak, saying that the judiciary erred in what was the determination. I would like to weigh in on your personal.
You see, the interpretation of law is different. So everybody sees it different. The independence of each arm of government can be interpreted differently. But you see, there is a supreme law which has to be able to be overseen by everybody. Everybody must be overruled by the by the Constitution. So it doesn't matter. You see, talking is talking, and following the law is following the law. So we as politicians, we can speak anything so that our way is followed. So let's see, as I have said before, let's wait and see, because the president has obeyed the Constitution by so keeping quiet after the ruling. It shows that he wants the country to be governed by the rule of law. So he is also watching what the judiciary is also doing, rather than disobeying. It's better to obey, and so that the country can go in the right way. The finance bill can be implemented correctly, rather than the shortcuts.
All right. Yep. And we are also joined by Tolsten Alenga, who is a leadership and governance expert. Thank you so much, brother, for making time. And I'll throw you straight to the deep end. The conversation that was last weekend was that the majority whip, who is also a legislator, Osoro, that he enticed some of the members from the Azimio brigade, and even there were calls by some of the Kenyans that this is something that should be lying squarely at the EACC docket, because being a majority leader being a majority whip is quite a position in the country. I would like you to weigh in on that.
Thank you, Troy, for this auspicious welcome to your show. And straight into the conversation, when you look at the statements by the MP, Honorable Savannah Osoro, as much as it indicts the members of parliament that were voted for the minority side, and whether or not they are performing their rightful duties.
Just hold the thought. We seem to be having some issues with your microphone, but I would like Wakili to weigh on that. Is this something that somebody, because he was caught on camera, and it's something that he said in public, and then maybe he said that, yeah, it was soup and thing. Is this something that should be investigated? Because, as I said, being a majority whip is quite a position in the country, and talking about something that as contentious as it has been, it's even in the courts as we speak, the Finance Act. Is this something that needs to be re-looked at, and especially when it comes from a leader?
I think basically what I can say, leaders in this country have to be put to account. As I have stated before, I mean, we have to be a country of laws. Otherwise, we are going to, to degenerate into something else. Secondly, a majority whip is someone very important, because, of course, he has to rally his side in making sure that whichever position the government wants to take, that position is achieved. And so it's an important office because that is an office that is created by the law as well. So whatever he says, he has to be careful, okay? Because once you portray an image of either disrespect to the laws or the constitution, then it means that any other person can really disrespect the constitution. No one has to obey it. At the same time, as he rallies his troops, he has to do that within the confines of the law. For instance, the government or the majority doesn't have, for instance, to buy the opposition. They can lobby. They have their own ways of lobbying. They can convince the other side because every member of parliament is independent-minded. However, there are limits to what they can do. For instance, you cannot, for instance, say we are going to buy the opposition, or we are going to compel them, or to put them under duress or something. You cannot do that. But you can, through your persuasion skills. I know members of parliament like Mheshimiwa here. The reason they won election is because of their persuasive skills. Through their persuasion, you further your agenda. You pull together your troops and convince the other side so that they can cross the aisle and join you in supporting whichever agenda you want to pass. And so everything that has to be, should be done by any arm of the government. And this is provided under Article 10 when you look at it. It has to be done within the confines of the Constitution. We have values and principles that have been given by the Constitution. And so everyone has to follow them. And especially if you are a leader in this country.
You're right. Yeah. I would like you, Alenga, now to weigh in on that. And still on that, we're talking about following the rule of law. And EPRA has not even followed that law. If there are some conservatory orders issued by the court, it's something that we should all follow. We're still partly implementing the Finance Act, if you ask me.
I think, first of all, just to pick up from where we had the technical hitch, the observation that the majority leader in the parliament came forth to say that he had bribed members from the other side of the divide to disappear when there was a very serious motion going on in parliament, in as much as it indicts those who agree to be bought, it's equally, or in a bigger part, it indicts the integrity of the entire parliament that we have, and whether this is a parliament you can trust or you can hope will give a serious decision for the country. I have said time and again that Kenyans should sort of just try to forget that we have a parliament, and then maybe we can work with the other state agencies that are working, because the parliament clearly shows, number one, it's a matter of the majority and the minority, and you know that we even push to have a huge majority, so that everything that is passed in that parliament has no afterthought, has no consideration for what the people think. Primarily, the parliament is supposed to represent that which the normal person who is not able to step into the leadership can actually has to say. They are representatives of the people. And if we have a situation where they are being bought to disappear on a crucial day, then it means we have no parliament to think about. Number two, it actually also deeply indicts the kind of leadership that we have. We have a leadership that has no, like my colleague Wakili says, they do not trust their power to convince, their power to sell their agenda and get people buy into it without using other extra theatrics that will have them carry the day. Straight into the matter of EPRA not adhering to the Constitution and the rule of law in the view of the conservatory orders that was applied the other day from the courts that bars them from effecting the 16% VAT. First of all, EPRA actually did that even before the president assented to the bill. They actually did it before the president assented to the bill. So if we have such an agency that does not listen to what the courts say, then it speaks volumes about our overall adherence to the Constitution and the rule of law. This Constitution was passed But since its inception 13 years ago, it has been continuously mutilated because we vote in people who do not understand that constitution. Primarily, the constitution tells us we walked away from that form of government where you have the opposition and the government long time ago. But today you still hear people say, sisi tuko upande wa serikali. You know, actually the constitution tells us we have only two parts in the parliament or in the judiciary, in the legislature, the majority and the minority, and they both form government. So we have one government.
And that is why we do not have an office for the official leader of opposition.
Yes, we have one government. So when we have crucial motions like the finance bill, we need to all talk. We can't look at it as this is from government, we are pushing it onto you. And then the other one says, sisi kwa upinzani, we don't want that. So can we have a working formula where MPs from this side of the divide can come and this side of the divide, and they sit together, they argue in the war room, and when they walk out, understanding that the kind of government they are in is a one government with only minority side and majority side. So by the time they are walking out of the room, they are telling us as Kenyans a position they have all agreed. So that we don't have things being fought in the public domain, and us as normal Kenyans wondering, now where do we come in?
Mheshimiwa, I would like you to also pick your mind on that in regards to that. Maybe we are still having the hangover from the last constitution. That is why we are talking about opposition and the government. And that is why we are having so many teething problems, including in the Finance Act. I'd like to pick your mind on that.
I think what the analyst has said is what's supposed to be, but it is not what it's supposed to be. Because when you look outside, you will see that ASMIO has assumed the office of the opposition. And the government of the President, William Samuel Ruto, has assumed the government. So, in essence, the Constitution intended us to be one government. But in actions, it is not that way. Because if we are in one government, then why is the opposition not sitting? Why the losers are not sitting with the president to be able to negotiate what is not right, what is not being done right, why the price of goods are going up, rather than going to the streets to demonstrate and be able to do harm to other people. You see, there are people who don't go to work when there is an announcement that there will be a demo tomorrow. Yes. What does that do? That destroys the economy. So if the Constitution for sure needed us to be one, then we need to sit down, and that has to go to the minds of our leaders to be able to put together their acts together and sit and run the government as one. But as it is now, we are still implementing the old constitution, even in parliament. Now, to come to the majority whip, I was in parliament for all those days when we were debating about the finance bill. I never saw anybody walking out from parliament having been bribed. When people are being bribed, you can always see people are moving.
Maybe, Mheshimiwa, it happened outside parliament.
No. Yeah. Those who were not there when we started the debate were not there up to the end. So, and they never came to parliament. So I think, to me, the MP was joking. The majority leader was, the majority whip was joking.
He said he paid them to stay away.
No, he was joking.
Not to come to parliament at all.
He was joking with the minds of the people. He never paid anybody.
That's a very serious
The president never. No. The leader never paid anybody, and I never heard anybody say, "I have been paid." You see, when we are in parliament, we are colleagues ourselves. There is no opposition in my blood. There is no government in my blood. We are all colleagues working for the same government, isn't it? So we talk everything. If we fight in the house here and we go to the canteen here to eat, we have soup on the same table and we discuss as members of parliament who working for the good of the country. So I never had anybody say has been bribed. I think that is an allegation.
All right. He later on said that he was misquoted by the press. He was talking about soup and everything. But, well, Kenya have an interpretation on that kind of soup. Back to you, Wakili. What some of the reprieves that we can get from the court, and what can we maybe expect after the three-judge bench? Let's say even if it plans that maybe the case will be heard, we know the courts, because the CJ has to, first of all, constitute the bench. They have to have a pre-trial conference, maybe a mention, then they have a hearing date and maybe a ruling date, which may take maybe a couple of days or even a month. What happens? Should we, or are we continuing using the Finance Act of 2021-2022?
Yeah, as it stands, all the amendments that were proposed by the Finance Act 2023, Finance Act 2023, are not supposed to be in operation. And I agree with my brother here. Whatever is happening in this country, for instance, EPRA putting into effect the amendment that were put in that by that act, when in fact the court has said all this act has been suspended. I think is just utter wrong, and I think as Okia is trying to do, he should be cited for contempt and be put to account, because of disobeying the court order. The common mwananchi is already feeling the pain. The prices are up, everything is going up because of just what has happened. So that is one. Two, we expect, as you already know, there are two things that are likely to happen. One is that the respondents, which is the AG and the CES for Treasury and others who are opposing the petition, are going to proceed to the Court of Appeal. Because if they leave it as it is, the determination of that matter can perhaps take months. Okay? Yeah. And if it takes months, the president had a target, and his government had a target of collecting, through that act, collecting 211 billion.
Actually, 300.
300.
Yes.
311 billion.
311.
Already they are late by 11 days. Okay? Every single day, it means they cannot be able to collect it. Yeah. So if it takes months, it means it may not be possible for them to. So the most likely thing that is going to happen is that these people, the respondents are likely to proceed to the Court of Appeal to see if they can reverse these conservatory orders. Now, when they go to the Court of Appeal, there is a likelihood that the Court of Appeal can say, well, there are some sections that should be suspended and some should continue to operate. Because when you look at the Okia's petition, there are specific sections. Other than that section of saying that the bill was supposed to be presented to the Senate, the Senate, he has very specific section that he's opposing. Okay? So the Court of Appeal may say, let us suspend, give conservatory orders on these particular sections, and the other parts of the bill operate. At the same time, the Court of Appeal might actually still agree with the High Court and say, well, we have looked at it, the whole thing is unconstitutional, so we cannot try to sanitize an unconstitutional act to put it into place. So those are things that people should expect. But in the meantime, what we expect is that this is a matter that is going to be expedited because we cannot wait. If the Honorable Chief Justice is likely to constitute that bench perhaps this week, and the bench starts working as soon as next week. And they're going to give very strict timelines so that this matter can be resolved as soon as yesterday.
More like the way we saw for the decision on who had won the election.
That's right, because that is normally provided by the Constitution. Only that this one is not provided by the Constitution of how many days. But now the court can set timelines on how fast they can fast track the determination of that matter. Because the longer we wait, the longer the government will also wait to collect its taxes. And it's obvious that taxes have to be collected. Only, as we have said, that in the collection of the taxes, let us follow the law. That is the only thing the court is saying.
All right. And Alenga, looking at still the Finance Act, it's also one of the reasons that Azimio has gone to the streets, and they've talked about this coming Wednesday, that is tomorrow, and they have talked about I remember yesterday the Right Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga saying that we will continue, and we have already seen what the Maandamanos can do. On Friday, 6 lives lost, talking about 10 million to 15 million signatures, but the Kenya Kwanza has talked about, well, your project is as dead as night, because we have the numbers. If at all they will collect the signatures, I also wonder why would they take the signatures, and we know very well the tyranny of numbers, just as we saw in the Finance Act.
Troy, a few things to talk about here. Number one, I just want to have a recap on what could happen in the Court of Appeal. I think I slightly differ with Wakili that there may be certain provisions that we may be waived on to proceed, because in totality the bill is unconstitutional, in the sense that what the President ascended to was not what was presented in Parliament. There was an additional 7 issues that were not presented in the Parliament. So
and it still didn't go to the Senate as it should.
Yes. So at that point, the bill already offends the Constitution, because it was some form of perjury or conmanship just to get something passed, you know. So I think by that, if we really hold the law, then that the judges must not look aside. They must indict that and rule on that as the biggest basis of unconstitutionalism, as has been raised by Honorable Okia Omtata. And then another thing to look at is there is a certain kind of misinformation from the majority side of government that the ruling on this bill stops collection of certain taxes. That's not true, because this is an amendment, but there exists a framework for collection of taxes. My pay as you earn for the previous month has already been deducted. I confirmed on my pay slip. So there's no way that government is not able to collect money, and as they are saying that certain issues will be grounded because we cannot, this bill does that. And such an issue was equally raised at yesterday, and the judges did not feel that, the judge did not feel that makes sense, you know. So government, the majority side of government also has to relook at how they present their case, you know. You cannot present a case by falsehoods, you know, because they don't amount to anything. And then now back to your question of the eventuality of Azimio collecting signatures to purge the government of the day. What we are losing in this conversation is, as per Article 1 of the Constitution, it says that all power belongs to the people, and then it proceeds to say that the people can exercise this power directly or through their elected representatives, that is the executive and the judiciary and the legislature. So if the Constitution already provides for a framework where citizens can bypass the elected representatives, so then this issue must be given the necessary attention that it deserves. And then let's say if you actually have raised about maybe 10 to 15 million signatures, and remember the president was voted in by about 7 million people, then actually there's a voice here that is trying to say something. So there has to be a framework within which this bypassing of the elected representatives, as provided for in the Constitution, must be institutionalized. Number two, there's a provision in law for the doctrine of necessity, where some things may be done even if we do not really see the framework existential in law. The first country to have this doctrine of necessity invoked was Nigeria during the time of Yaradua, when he was away and he was almost dying. and the parliament had to swear in the deputy president as president without official handover of power. So the doctrine of necessity does exist. So if Kenyans speak in volumes, about 15 million, they say, we don't have faith in this government, we don't have faith in the parliament too, so we don't want our issue taken to parliament for debate. We just want to say as Kenyans, we don't want this government. So a framework has to be established within which that has to be addressed.
Yeah, I think, Mheshimiwa, at the end of the day, all this has to make its way to Parliament, and we saw what has happened in the Finance Act. It was almost unanimous when it was passed. I would like to pick your mind on that. If that did see the light of day, if it ends up in one way or the other, let's say they have the 15 million signatures.
The way the analyst has just said is that if we go that route, then we will have no rule, we will have no country to call Kenya, because we will be swearing in everybody who collects signatures more than the.
But that's the constitution.
So now it has to come to Parliament, and that is where the decision has to be made. And the decision has to be made by the people that it represents, the 45 million. And we are the people in that house. So, and it has to be put in a framework for it to be able to work in Parliament. It doesn't just come as signatures and then they are thrown in Parliament for them to. It has to pass through researchers, analysts, and through the House Business Committee to be able to know whether it is admissible in the House. So it is not everything that is just brought that it goes to Parliament for debate. So what I know is that this country cannot reach that far because we have a constitution to follow. We have a president in place, we have the deputy in place, and we have the government in place. So before it reaches there, I don't think they can even get 15,000 signatures. I am sure they will get 2,000 or 3,000.
Are you sure?
No, yes.
The other time
unless where are the 15,000? Why could they vote? Why could they vote the day of voting? 15,000. Where were they? Why did they vote? That is small number. If they have the votes.
You're saying that they cannot get the numbers.
They cannot get the numbers.
They can't get the numbers
unless they are forging the numbers.
Alenga, I think Mheshimiwa has a point. They cannot.
They cannot. And the signatures must be verified by IEBC to find whether that is the correct person or that is forgery. And you'll find that half of them will be forgeries. People will be signing on behalf of the others, even although the ID might be there. But it cannot reach there.
So you say it's an exercise in futility.
This is futility. This is hot air, as the Chief Justice always says.
Yeah. You know, you think they can marshal the numbers and still marshal the numbers in Parliament?
You know,
why would they marshal them to vote for them?
In the boxing ring, they say the blow that sends you down is not the strongest one, it's the one you didn't see. Yeah. So ideally, in the last election, we had 22 million registered voters. And then we had about 15 million only voting. That means there was almost close to 8 million voters that didn't speak that day. Maybe this could be their time to speak, Mheshimiwa.
They cannot.
But still, they cannot.
And then also another misinformation from Mheshimiwa is that IEBC cross-checks signatures. You know, IEBC does not have a data bank for signatures, so they cannot verify my signature whether it is mine or not. That's a falsehood.
But perhaps
yes, Mola.
You know what Azimio is trying to do is basically they want to make a political statement. And to delegitimize the government. Because if 20 million people come up today and say, we are dissatisfied with how this government is being run, it's a political statement. It's a serious statement that the government has to listen to. Okay? And it's really sad that Azimio is doing this right now, because all this is coming up after the finance bill. When it really mattered, when they were supposed to be in Parliament and vote, they ducked. they were not in the parliament. Okay?
Yeah, only 89 voted.
They needed mandamano to say, now we don't want, let us not pass this. This is being, pushed down our throats. Yeah? That's the time they will have done this mandamano. But first of all, they relaxed, made sure that we have the Finance Act as we have it, and then they went back and said, and of course they knew that they didn't have the numbers. Went back and said, now, we guys are dissatisfied with what this regime is doing, with what the majority are doing, and now we want to fight in the street. I think this is utter wrong. Having said that, it is the right of every single citizen to express their feelings and to take charge of their government. And I agree with my friend here. Article 1 gives that power to the people. And one of the ways is to show your dissatisfaction and to say, to directly tell the authorities how you want your government to be run through picketing. You can, and it says everyone has that right under Article 37. Not some. I've seen there is some amendment that they're trying to create, saying that you are now going to even say how many people are going to come. I mean, this is a lot of nonsense, really.
And again, the questions do raise what we were hearing during the BBI, the basic structure, right?
Yes. I mean,
which is quite something that it's quite hard to change at the moment.
Absolutely. They cannot change it. If all Kenyans, I don't know how many we are right now, perhaps 50 million.
50 million. Around there now.
Perhaps 51 million.
We 45, about 3
whichever number we can decide to go to the streets today. Yeah. At the same time, 20 million can choose to go to the streets, and the remaining decide to remain in their house or go to work. It is their decision. The Constitution gives them that power. It is the people's power. Now, no one can come up, and it will be interesting to see which, amendments they try to make, or to the Public Order Act, to try to do this kind of thing. It is going, but it's basically it's going to be taken back to the court, and the court is going to nullify it, because you cannot limit the power of the people, because ultimately the power belongs to the people. Everyone else who is in Parliament, who is in the executive, who is in judiciary, they are only doing it's a delegated work. We delegated them to do that work. Now you cannot limit my power. I am the principal. You are my agent. You cannot. The agent can never have more power than the principal. It will never happen. Yeah.
All right. And Mheshimiwa, I still want to pick your mind on that. Geoffrey Roko, who is the MP from Mbeere, he's talked about that he would want some amendments in regards to how we picket, how we protest against maybe the government or any other issue that we want to bring about. Do you support some of the amendments that he has talked about, and especially in regards to the Azimio demos that they have lined up tomorrow?
First of all, I have not seen the amendment of Ruku because I have not read it, I have not seen it. So I cannot recommend on something I have not read. What I know is that you cannot change the constitution. If there's a right to picket, then it should go on. So the only thing that is bad with the picketing is that there are people who are bent to do wrong as they picket. They pick people's properties, they throw stones, and so, when you bring young people together, you bring many people together, they have all sorts of minds. And also, these are hungry people. They have no food, they have no money. And so they are thinking that by so doing, they are gaining. And also, the others who left their homes thinking that I might pass somewhere and grab something and go home with. So you cannot control the picketing people. There is no formula that like the other day in Kamkunji, the Prime Minister told them not to touch anyone's property as they were going to the city center. But see how they were throwing stones at people. And some people were killed on the way. And some other people were marked. Somebody wrote in the article that he he has been given an order to supply, is it 26 iPhones? So he has to pick them as they are walking in the shops. He has already been given an order. So what kind of people are you picketing with? So if it is the leaders that are picketing alone, people like the leadership of the parties and that kind of thing, that is okay. But if it is the everybody, the people that are looking for jobs, the non-employed, and everybody who is angry in the street, then you cannot be able to prevent them from picking things. So picketing is in the Constitution. There's nobody to deny. But how do you do it in this country? You have seen people picket in other countries peacefully, carrying trees, carrying placards, and they don't destroy anyone's property. But have we reached that stage ourselves as a country? No. We are yet to reach there.
Perhaps that I could say something. And that's the reason why before picketing is done, the police are supposed to be informed, not for purposes of authorizing the picketing, but so that they can provide security. And the reason you provide, because you have sufficient laws. If someone is picking another person's property, those are thieves. They're supposed to be arrested. And that's the reason why police are supposed to be there. Police are not supposed to be there to fight the protesters. They're supposed to be there to make sure that there is order. There is peace and order. What we normally see in this country is that instead of the police giving that order, they start fighting the protesters. And once you start fighting the people who are exercising their constitutional guaranteed rights, they're also going to fight back. So I think this is where I think the government has to rethink so that they avail enough security for the protesters and the people who are not protesting, so that people's property, people's lives are protected. And if someone breaches, it's an individual. It is not a crowd that is committing a crime. If I still have stolen as an individual, I haven't stolen on behalf of the crowd. Let the people who are committing crimes be arrested and charged as per the laws of the country. Yeah.
All right. And let's first of all now cross over. We have Energy CES Davis Chirchir, who is responding to a number of issues regarding the inquiry of escalating cost of electricity. Is currently addressing. Let's first of all head over there and listen in.
We don't need the LC to be confirmed. We need to do more of open credit and allow us to remove that 0.7% confirmation, remove the 0.7% confirmation, and be able to reduce the cost of financing. So it was basically a review mission. The other objective, Chair, was to...
Waziri, can I allow Chonga to introduce? Chonga, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Chair. Good morning, Chair.
Morning.
Sorry, I've been having a problem of logging today. My name is Honorable Chonga, MP for Kilifi South, and I'm also a member of this council.
Excellent. Thank you. Proceed.
Chair, the second objective, apart from asking them to give us an open credit or to remove the confirmation charge, which was very successful because they do agree that they don't see risk, and we are able to agree to remove the confirmation and therefore lessen the cost of financing. But more importantly, since we went into this agreement, we had locked the freight and premium, FNP. And at the time we went to tender, the freight and premium in April were high. The freight and premium have since come down, and so we're really asking them, though we signed for this freight and premium, and since our the other regional competitor, freight and premium has come down, we are becoming less competitive. So can we renegotiate that 118 freight premium and refinancing cost and bring it down to what the market is offering today? And again, on that, we're fairly successful. So we should be seeing an improvement on the agreement to lower the freight and premium, but more importantly, remove the confirmation charge, and therefore be able to give the benefits, better benefits of this G2G project, which was really meant to address the macro issue. So we should be seeing a lowering of the cost of financing and a fairly competitive freight premium and refinancing cost of this product. That was the purpose of the mission, and I want to report that it was fairly a successful mission. Thank you, Chair.
All right. So, Waziri, you can confirm that the G2G is getting better, not worse.
Davis Churchill there in Parliament responding to questions from the committee. Well, among other things, they're talking about details of power purchase agreement between IPPS, that is the Independent Power Producers, and Kenya Power and Lighting Company, and also details on the monthly economic merit, consumption charge, as well as other issues in that sector. And from there, we are also going for another committee where Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki is responding to questions from the Senate Ad Hoc Committee that is investigating the Shakahola horror in regards to the security and administrative officers, that is the police who are there. What they know, they shed light on what they know in regards to what transpired during their time. Remember, they were all transferred from that count. Let's first of all listen in.
The same amount. If I was a judicial officer, this is someone who has appeared before me not once, not twice. This is the third time. The offenses appear quite serious offenses. If I was a prosecutor, in terms of the weight and the attention to sustain the prosecution would be different. As a judicial officer, I will do what judges.
Apologies for that technical hitch. That is Interior Cabinet Secretary, that is Professor Kithure Kindiki, appearing before the Senate Ad Hoc Committee investigating the Shakahola deaths. And today, the invitation of administration officers who served in Kilifi County during that mess that is happening at the mini chambers of County Hall. And we will be bringing you a more updated version of that report in our subsequent bulletin, together with other committees that are having their sitting today. We are still on News Check. Now we are wrapping it up. Let's first of all hear the closing remarks of my panelists. I have been having Joshua Mbidi, who is the MP for Masinga. We also have Alex Mola, who is a constitutional lawyer, and also Tolsten Alenga, who is a governance and also a leadership expert. Let's begin with you, Mheshimiwa. Your closing remarks in regards to the state of the nation, and more specifically on what is happening. Kenyans are looking at the Finance Act very keenly, and also Kenyans are keen on making sure that the demos, even if they have to go on, they have to be peaceful.
I think what I can tell Kenyans is that to have patience, because we in our wisdom as members of parliament, we wanted to create an environment whereby the country has money by passing the finance bill, because the way we were doing last financial year, you could see there were no developments. And also all the pending bills were not being able to be paid because there was no money. So and also the debts are even gone as high as 9 trillion. And what we wanted to do is that after some times implementing the finance bill, we can start now paying the debts and bring them down, bring the trillions down. At the end of the day, Kenya will benefit, and that is what was the wisdom of Parliament, and I am sure God will help us to continue to collect the money.
Thank you, Honorable. Alex?
Yeah, I think Kenyans should be very happy that they have a judiciary that is independent, a judiciary that can stand up right now and really affirm and stand for the Constitution. Kenyans should be very happy that 10 years or 13 years after we promulgated a Constitution, a judiciary can stand up against the executive and basically bring order. And so what I can conclude by saying is that, especially the other arms of the government, we need to be a country of laws, a country governed by the rule of law. And if we are governed by the rule of law, then it means that our activities and our affairs will run smoothly. Otherwise, it will be fighting day in, day out. And the person who suffers is the common mwananchi, not the person who sits in parliament, not the judicial officer who sits at the bench, and not the president who sits at the Senate House.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alenga.
Yes. I think in as much as we're talking about the state of the nation, we have to admit that there are issues that are going wrong. And for these things to be corrected, we will need both the input of the minority side of the government and the majority side of the government. Because at the end of the day, this country belongs to all of us. If it goes right, it's good for you and I. If it goes bad, it's bad for all of us. You know, there's nobody that will have a premium when things are going wrong. There's nobody that will benefit when things are going wrong. So ideally, let us allow dialogue over things we want for the country, so that we agree over things we want, and when we start rolling them out, there's no hitches here and there. It is imperative for government to collect taxes. It's imperative for government to try and establish a system where we are not really dependent on foreign debt, and we try to create and spend what we have within ourselves. But then the proper frameworks must be put in place. Consultation with the people must be done, and therefore, and also the direction of the law must be adhered to. When all these things are factored in, we make decisions that make Kenya progress, and not we don't continue rotating around the same spot. With the matters that are in court today, let's hope that the judiciary will supply the wisdom that is required, and then our leaders will also respect what the courts say, and from there, Kenya does not stop, will forge the way forward. And then maybe lastly, for those who are going out for demonstrations tomorrow, speak your voice, for the Constitution allows you to do so, but do not harm someone, do not break someone's business, because they have gone through a lot to establish that, and that is their livelihood. But again, to the police, who everybody else forgets. Today we are talking about shops that were broken into, glasses that were broken, but we are not talking about the 6 people that were killed by the police. We cannot have a police that we fund with our own taxes to kill us. We cannot have guns turned against our people. Guns are supposed to secure our borders.
And with all fairness, that the 6 have not quite been confirmed that they were all indeed killed by police officers. But at the end of the day, 6 lives were lost, which were not supposed to be lost. Even one is way too many. Tolsten Alenga, who is a leadership and governance expert. Just next to him, we have an advocate of the High Court, Alex Mola. And just next to him, we have a Honorable MP, Joshua Mbidi Mwalio, who is the MP for Masinga. Well, that's put a cap on the first hour. On this second hour, we are looking at the online protection for our children, and also inculcating an e-reading culture in our children. Thank you so much for joining us in this first hour. We're taking a quick break, but we'll be right back with more. I'll be engaging Lona Kamemba, who is the Senior Category Brand Manager, Chocolates and Biscuits at Cadbury, and also Luna Odawa, who is a children's psychologist.
Afrika kwa mandhari yetu ya kuvutia,
tamaduni zetu, ukarimu wetu, vyakula vyetu, uchapakazi,
na pia kwa sauti tofauti za watangazaji wetu waliobobea.
Dibengo liko hapa aka upcoming sponsor. Bila shaka hapa ni kama Pedeshe, ma Deep State, pia vile Cartels.
Tunaenzi talanta za pwani, tunakuza talanta za hapa kwetu nyumbani.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tuko mjengoni kama kawa na wanangu wengine wawili.
Usikose kutegea 103.1 Pwani FM, station ambayo itakupa fursa ya kupata uhondo kamili wa pwani na kuleta Wakenya pamoja.
Pwani FM, tafrija kipwani.
So who is he? His name is Alex, but I am not saying anything more. Nguo zako, viatu zako, na hii sura yako hataki kuiona huko.
Unajua mimi nikikasirika.
Ha! Jemadari! Nasi umefurahi.
Sitakubali ufanye mamangu akwe mwenda azimu wewe.
Utadu nini?
Hey! Jane, leave alone. That's what she wants.
Christine na Teresia ni kesi ngumu sana.
Kuna kitu nataka kukuambia.
Sure.
And you can't tell anyone.
I promise.
Nitakwambia uandike jina ya nani.
Unataka kuruka? Hebu toka kwangu uende.
박연 사건으로 시신 운반 관련자를 알아냈다. 그렇다면 다음은
우리나 잘못되니까 내가 불편해서 그런다고. 불편 뜻 알죠? 좁고 눅눅하고 따끔하고.
팀장이 있었는데 교통사고가 났습니다.
Прикончил?
Да.
Я жду. Там одна девка осталась. Быстро прикончу.
Да.
Polisi walipokuja kwako katoroka. Na ndio inafanya unanileta mahakama sababu we ni muizi.
Yes.
Utake jolekane. I want to report him.
Yes.
He's a thief.
Yes, he is.
Lakini kwa
Women secretary is a thief.
Ama kwa bahati mbaya ama kwa bahati kafla bin vu, kuna hao wajamaa wa kutembezanga hizi makaratasi za atufatai.
Ukampatia Sungura pesa ngapi?
Nikampatia 800,000.
800,000.
Exactly.
Kwa Sungura.
Cash money.
Hapa unaona Sungura?
Hakuna.
Wewe, hiyo chura baya wewe iko nayo. Wewe ikotoa hiyo pesa yote wapi ya?
Mimi chura mbaya.
Wewe chura baya kabisa. Na try. Mimi iko weka wewe ndani.
Welcome back to KBC News Check, and away from politics, let's protect our kids and keep them busy. We are looking at the protection and most specifically online protection for our kids. Now, if our kids are busy, it brings about a number of issues, and especially on the online platforms. But Cadbury's have launched a Give a Generous Voice story campaign that introduces a homegrown audio library. That could be a game changer, and especially when our kids are at home. And to help me drive this conversation, on my immediate left, we have Lona Kamemba, who is the Senior Category Brand Manager, Chocolates and Biscuits at Cadbury. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Just next to her, we have Luna Odawa, who is a children's psychologist. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And maybe to start us off, this campaign, what exactly does it involve, and how far have you been able to go?
So this campaign started 3 years ago. And the reason we started this campaign is that we did a research and noticed that our kids were reading Western books. And it's very important for kids to read stuff that they can relate to, an environment that they can relate to, people that they can relate to, and that inspires their confidence to make them feel that I can achieve this in life. So we noticed they were reading Rapunzel, or they were reading Beauty and the Beast, and they were reading Snow White. I'm sure our kids have not seen snow unless they've seen it on YouTube or on other platforms. So we saw a need, and parents were telling us there's a need for us to create books that are relevant, that are local, that are done by local Kenyans, for their kids to have relevant stuff to read. So we started the campaign 3 years ago. We've collected stories. So far we have about 100 books in the Cadbury Library, and these are free to all kids. Anyone can access and read them. So this year we got a different insight, and it's the fact that life has changed. Parents have become busier and busier. By the time they sit in traffic through the whole day and come back in the evening, you find parents are too tired to instill this reading culture in kids. And what reading does in the evening is that it brings families together. It creates those bonding moments. So we decided as a brand, and through the help of other people, how do we make it easier for parents to continue instilling this culture and to continue creating those bonding moments. So we are for this year, we are turning those 100 books into audio stories to make family time, story time easier, simpler, but still enable parents to continue with that culture. Yeah.
And Luna, looking at how can we leverage on technology, just like Cadbury is doing, to even protect our kids from what they are seeing, because a lot of things that are on our phones are just entertainment purposes, and now they have an idea of converting some of the, or lending, somebody can even lend his or her voice and tell stories. What impact could this create for our kids, and especially when they are in the holidays?
Okay. So I know there's always a challenge when it comes to things that are online, but I want to believe that this is well taken care of. And so I'm just looking at it like if you buy an audiobook. So what happens? You are able to download it and listen to it anytime, anywhere. And so what is this doing to your child? Reading to your child, or hearing a child hearing your voice. Let me say it's a parent's voice, for example, or a local voice with a local accent. First of all, they are relating to this voice. They are able to tell that this is something that is happening around us. It's not too foreign. And so they can relate with it. They gain interest in it. When you read to a child, when they listen to, especially the same voice, reading to them over and over again, it makes them gain confidence in them. They are able to repeat some of the words that you say. And so you're growing them cognitively. And at the same time, they're growing socially. If it's a mother's voice, for example, for a child who maybe has not grown too much, maybe they're still toddlers, they're still able to feel mom's presence, let's say, or if it's dad's presence in the house, even when dad is away, because that is a familiar voice. It could be a comforting voice. You know, it could be a voice that takes them to sleep. So it's very relatable, and that helps in the growth of the child.
And Lorna, looking at Cadbury's, we know Cadbury's for sweet things, chocolates, some snacks. What exactly necessitated you to, that's quite a big shift from making something to eat and then something to feed your brains and your minds.
Yeah.
What exactly necessitated you guys to do that? You are in your third year already.
Yes,
yeah.
We're in our third year, and last year, unfortunately. So Cadbury is a subsidiary of Mondelez International. So Mondelez is a snacking company, and we empower people to snack right. And the thing that comes about empowering people is building communities. So we are a purpose-driven brand. We are a purpose-driven company. And by driving purpose, it means we connect with our communities and try and understand what is it in our communities that is ailing them, and how can we work through other people to help us solve that issue. So Cadbury is a brand that is highly rooted in generosity. And even from the time of the founder of Cadbury, they've always been about communities and families. What can we do to bring families together? And actually our first innovation, which was the cocoa beverages, was founded on the basis that families then were losing their fathers to alcohol, and he needed a drink that doesn't have the same repercussions as alcohol, but still brings families together. And that was the first invention, and after that it was chocolate. So you see, as much as we're a snacking company, we've always been about communities and how do we build communities. So that's how we started this whole campaign around what's the issue in society. We choose to pick learning, because learning is one of the growth pillars in any community. And we decided to create relevant stories, but we're not doing it ourselves. We've done it through Kenyans, and they've been really, really amazing at sending stories. Yeah.
You've talked about over 100 audiobooks. In what fields are we talking about here?
So there are 100 stories. They're just not Kenyan. They've spread across Pan-Africa. We do have Mauritius stories, we have Zambia, we have Tanzania, we have Mozambique, we have all sorts of stories. And when we were doing the selection, so we received hundreds and hundreds of stories every year, but we have to select them. And when we were looking at our selection, all the stories that came about, you will see they're talking about normal issues in society. Like, for example, there's this one, A Season of Butterfly. And the grandmother is basically talking the grandchild through the seasons of a butterfly, from an egg to, a caterpillar, to a pupa, and then it turns into a butterfly. And the other day, I was reading that story to my daughter, and the interest. And you can imagine this is something she's learned, because she sees butterflies, she sees caterpillars, but I don't think she's ever understood that there's that cycle. And that's what we notice about all the books within the library. They do talk about relevant issues, issues that are currently happening. There are stories there about matatus, about a dog that stole meat, and what is the lesson after all that. So I love that the books are by locals, and they are bringing out all these relevant issues in societies that are actually very educative to the kids. Yeah.
And looking at, I got kids as well, and they love watching more than they love listening to. But looking at when I was in primary and high school, we used to meal around a radio that actually it was KBC, because it was the one which had some more or less like the audiobooks that Lorna is talking about. How do we inculcate that reading culture in a field that our kids just want to see and flip from one TikTok to another, from one video to another? How can we inculcate an audio listening platform for our kids? Because Cadbury's have already led the way.
Okay. So children learn by modeling. What they have seen adults do, what they have seen others around them do. I'm sure you went around a radio because others were doing that, and maybe you were required to do that in school, because I remember being forced to listen to a radio lesson in school,
especially in the afternoons.
And so we had to do that. And so right now, I know that most of us are very, very busy, and so we don't have time to just sit around something and listen. But we can actually teach our children to do this. If you set aside some time and say, maybe just before we go to bed, we are going to read a story, or we are going to listen to a story. That becomes part of your culture. So it does not take them away from the other things that they seem to enjoy, but they know that this is part of what we do every evening. Let's say, if mom or dad is not here, then we listen to a book. If they are here, then we read a book. It just becomes part of the family culture. And so they grow up knowing every maybe 5 minutes before, or this is how we tell we are going to bed, that we read a book. And then we go to bed. So it's something that you can model as a parent or even a guardian, and the kids pick up. Kids learn very fast.
Lorna, looking at the audiobooks themselves, what languages are you talking about? Are we talking about even African languages? Are we talking about English and Swahili? And are we only targeting kids?
Yeah. So the campaign is to target kids below the age of 10. And that's because literacy, the literacy of our country starts with our ability to read, something as simple as reading. And basically growing up with my daughter and just watching her, I can remember her starting to read from k, ah, to, and I kept wondering, what is she doing? And then now she can fully take a book and read from start to finish, and I'm like, did I really go through this? I can't remember learning how to read. But it's become so good how kids nowadays are able to read very fast. The library so far So what we have in the library right now are e-books. They are fully illustrated with all these beautiful pictures, really, really attractive for kids. And literally when you go to the library, you're able to flip. It flips like a book. It's all digital. And it's based on this habit that kids already have. They watch a lot. So we've created them really colorful, very few sentences, and we've tiered them. So kids below the age of 10 years, there are different levels of books that they can read. So the older kids, they have more paragraphs. But the younger ones, it's literally like 3 words. Then the rest is just pictures. So far, we have them in English. Majority are in English. We do have Swahili. And Swahili, you'll notice it's divided into 2 versions. So we have some that came from Kenya and some that came from Tanzania. So you will also see there's a lot of mention of Dar es Salaam, maybe they went with the mother to Dar es Salaam, and you can see this is a different culture. We also have books in French and we have in Portuguese. Yes.
Wow, that is something. How much will it cost someone to access these digital books? And you're talking about lending your voice for audio voice books.
Yeah.
How do somebody get something back, or it's purely free, or exactly how has Cadbury's come in terms of making this?
Yeah. So we've ensured to have a library that is purely free, so that we can give access to all kids. We do understand that you will require bundles because you see it's an online platform. And I think with us, with the time, we want to evolve to a place where we can have a 0-rated library. So it allows you to completely access the books for free. And also one thing that we did is that we did pay authors' rights to allow us to have these books for 3 years. And that's to allow us to give them completely for free to kids. So last year we managed to publish about 5,000 books, and those books we distributed to schools for free, and at the same time still drove the library, telling parents and kids you can completely access this for free, you don't have to buy anything, and all that stuff. So we've ensured that the library is free to the kids. It's very simple. Right now we do have ebooks. So the link is www.cadbury.africa. As simple as that. Sometimes you can even scan the QR code. It takes you there faster. But the library is completely free. All you need to do is select an ebook. There's a wide variety. Select an ebook. You'll have the ability to record because there's a microphone there. You're given up to 15 minutes, so you can do as many takes as possible. You can upload that voice. You can download and share to a minder to read for the kids in case you're not there in the evening or you're not able to be there. And you can also share on WhatsApp, you can share on Facebook, you can share with very many other people. But it is actually your local voice. Yeah.
Okay, and you'll be telling us how you vet this, because somebody might decide to use that platform to talk about something that is not what you guys had maybe agreed on or had anticipated.
So we definitely vet. What we are doing is that we aim to collect about 900 audio voices. They are going to the back end. Currently, we are in partnership with Denso, who are my digital agency, and they're the ones running the library. And I'm also in partnership with CC Africa, and that's a publisher. He's well experienced in terms of publishing. So they usually do the vetting and the auditing. Everything has to be completely relevant for kids, because they're also ensuring the safety of children and what they are getting exposed to. And after that, we will now select the final 85 audio voices.
All right.
Yeah.
Luna, looking at the internet and the space that Kenya has enabled not only kids, but also adults as well. But that is where we have maybe a loophole, because looking at what we've been talking about cybersecurity over the last couple of years, it's been a challenge. And in banking, in pornography, these are things that our kids can be able to view if we are not careful. How do we ensure that we keep our kids updated, just like Cadbury's is doing, but also not intrude in their privacy? Because we are told as parents you need to be checking what your kid is doing on the gadgets. How do we do that without intruding into their privacy? Because the moment that they realize that, and they are more some are more tech savvy than us, they will be able to hide them in a way that we will not be able to see.
And that is very true, and it's happening a lot. Kids are 10 steps ahead of us, and so by the time we get to even check what they watched, it's already gone. But I always say, as a parent, if you can start early, instilling values that you would want your child to grow with, in terms of what is right and what is not right for you. What age is appropriate for such material, and what is it that you cannot be able to digest. If you start early, it becomes easier. But if you want to start at 14, for example, this child maybe, I'm getting children who have watched pornography by age of 4, age of 5. How did they watch that? Because they were left unattended. Nobody was caring about what they were looking at and who they were with when they were exposed to such things. So it's our responsibility as parents and guardians to be able to be involved in the lives of our children as early as possible, especially the formative years, because that's when values are formed. And so if a child knows that whatever is coming on my screen, there's something that is just not right with it, they'll quickly come and tell you, I saw something, or someone exposed me to something that I think is just not right, however young they are. And they'll be able to tell you that because of the values you've instilled and the relationship you have with that child. And so starting from that early age, even with all the firewalls that we will put and all the precautions that we'll put, if it starts from the conscience of the child, it's much easier to handle.
All right.
Yeah.
Back to you, Lorna. This is more or less like a company initiative, like a CSR. And have you maybe thought of partnering with the Ministry of Education or maybe the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development? Because I've noted they also have more or less like their own version of audiobooks or even videos that somebody can be able to access, some more or less more crafted for the kids. Have you thought of partnering with some other people so that we may be able to maybe even help the CBC that is currently underway?
Yeah, I think initially when we started this program, our aim, because we had a 3-year plan, and our aim was to partner with the government, to partner with the education department, but I think even for us, we are first and foremost a snacking company. I don't think we anticipated that we'll be having such good books. The only time I realized is when I gave my daughter a sample of like 10 of the books. We printed out 10 of the books, and I gave her, and she went with them to school. And then she came back, the teacher called me to say, oh my God, where can I get these books? Because they're really relevant and they're actually in line with what CBC is actually recommending for parents to buy. That's when I realized we can't sell them. We're giving them out for free. Unfortunately, this is the final year, but I think we'll still keep it open because the library will always still be there, the digital library. Because we still have it open, we are working with Hill & Norton, who are our PR agency. We are still open to getting those contacts. Like if we get contacts in terms of the Ministry of Education or any other platform that would like us to partner with them, we are still willing to, print out these books, send them links to the library, just if they can incorporate them in the education system, well and good. I think it's a win-win for everyone.
And I've seen that you've partnered with even content creators like Njue. I've seen Caroline Mutoko.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, and what opportunities are there for content creators as well?
Yeah, so the reason we partnered with content creators is because of their power to influence, their powers to change a behavior or ability. And even as we were selecting them, we looked for families and content creators who are already reading with their kids. They naturally do it, even before we partnered with them. This is something they are naturally already doing with their kids. They have instilled that reading culture in their kids, and we've seen them, what they do online. So we are partnering with Caroline Mtoko, Njue, I think some Murugi Munyi, I'm forgetting some of the names, but we are partnering with very powerful content creators. And what we love about them is their power to influence. And so far, they've been doing an amazing job in terms of rallying parents to, you can share your voice. This is what you need to do. And they've made it as simple as possible for parents to do that. And even them themselves, if you see some of the videos and content that is going up, it's actually them either recording a voice and sending to a minder to read for the kids to listen, which is really amazing. Or you can see themselves going into the library and actually listening to an audiobook together with the kids.
And Luna, we are looking at the digital space and content creation. We've seen some kids, barely 5 years old, mentioning all the governors in Kenya. We've seen another one reading news very well, who's less than, I think, 10 years old. This is a good platform for them to be able to even not only make something, also express themselves. But there's also cyberbullying that comes with that as well. And also their minds and their brains are not quite advanced for some of the things that the hard hits that come with the internet. How do we protect such kind of kids who are more than gifted, but they are not quite there yet because of their age?
Parental guidance. Parental guidance is very important because some of those kids are actually exposed to those things because the parents are supporting them, and because they see the abilities they have, the capacity they have. They don't want just the child to just remain an ordinary child, which is totally excellent. Some of the children do very extraordinary kids. There some of them are actually clearly outliers. So it's okay. They need to be guided. They don't have capacity to deal with the internet, both the positive and negative, because the attention they receive. For example, I remember the one who was doing all the governors, just like in a split of a second. They don't have the capacity to handle the attention now they get.
Yes.
Because I know media houses wanted to interview them,
Yes.
and many people went around them. They don't have that capacity. So they need someone, and the someone has to be someone who's informed. Because I can be a parent with such a child and I just get very excited that I have an outlier in my house. And so I want them to be exposed to anyone, everything that is around, so that they get more likes and get more famous and popular and all that. But the thing is, they don't know the risk also that comes with that. Because one of the things, and the people on social media can tell you, the exposure can give you a high. But can you remain in that high? Can a child now understand that they no longer give me likes? Can they understand that? They don't have capacity for that. Can they understand that? Can they understand an interview? Like if you call them here, do they understand what this whole nation watching them means? So there's a lot of guidance that is needed, both to the parent and to the child. So people in that space, if they can come up and guide even the parents, because most of the parents, I don't think, also have the capacity for that. If they can guide them on, these are the limits, like for a child, do they need to be totally exposed, because they are minors? Have they given consent for this? What is appropriate for them to be exposed to? What kind of media should they, maybe if it's interview, who should interview them? Who shouldn't interview them? Are they taking so much time away from the other important things they should do, just getting more likes and being popular? Is someone benefiting from this? So all that needs a lot of guidance. Unfortunately, there are not so many, so I don't think there are any policies that surround this. So it's just those few who have come up that someone needs to actually guide them and tell them this is the limit for this child, because they're still a minor, they need to be guided in this way, this is how much exposure that can be given to them. Because not even just cyber, even physically they're not very safe.
Yes.
Yeah, they're not
I
very
totally
safe.
concur, because last year I interviewed the 2021 KCPE top student, and I had to interview him live on air while his father was there. I didn't want to put any pressure on a little soul, but he was able to express himself in a good way. But the good thing is that he had his father just next to him, something that we are not seeing in some of the videos and some of the online content that we have.
Yes.
Perhaps do you think that we need to relook at the cyber laws in Kenya? Because the cyberspace has exploded in the last couple of years, but with it a lot of challenges as well, and especially for our minors.
Yes, we do. Technology is evolving faster, I think, than our policies. And so I know there are people who are really checking on this. I know there are people who are behind the rights of children, and they are very active in all this. But I think it's evolving faster than we do. Before we know it, we see a video is viral. Before we know it, something has gone on. And so even as this is happening, I think, yes, the people who are responsible need to actually put some policies in place to protect especially children, because these are people who cannot give informed consent. So I'm taking a video of a child. Has that child allowed me? Yes, even if they allowed me, do they have capacity to allow me? Yeah, because they are minors. Yeah, so it's important that we have that in mind.
And push for, in your audiobooks, maybe this is a good avenue to instill some of the society values and norms, and also try and eradicate some of the things. A good example is in those books that we can talk about, because you're targeting somebody who is maybe 10 and below.
Yeah.
Maybe things like period shame, maybe things like FGM, that mostly happens when kids are just almost that same age. Your audiobooks, the content that they do have, are there some of the things that talk about society vices, societal successes as well?
Yes, just going through a couple of books, then you start seeing those societal and culture coming out. For example, there's a book called Pendo, and Pendo is about this girl who's born dark, yeah, and she's dark-skinned, and all through growing up, she felt like she was different, and she didn't feel like she was beautiful, and she didn't feel like she was pretty. So in that village, they had what is it called, like a fashion show, and she didn't want to participate, and the mother encourages her and tells her, "You're beautiful," and it's all in Swahili, and tells her, "You're beautiful, please try and participate." And when she participates in the whole fashion thing, she actually comes out on top. And then she started realizing, you know, I'm different, I'm dark-skinned, but I'm beautiful the way I am. So I think those are some of the soft cultural things that we would like our kids to start understanding in terms of appreciating themselves as they are. And I think if you just go through the entire library, personally I haven't managed to go through, but every time I read any of those books or I see it being presented, there's always a lesson that we are trying to instill. And it's just our cultural, being proud of who we are, being proud of our cultural differences, and being proud of us being locally the way we are. Yeah.
And Luna, I'm quite sure this is a good avenue because of the digital space that we have in the country, and some of the brilliant activities like from companies like Cadbury's to ensure that we also have the reading culture these days. And is a good avenue also to push some of the issues that are affecting the country. First of all, corruption, road safety, FGM, early marriages. These are some of the things that we need to inculcate into our kids at that age.
Yes.
And the digital space is quite good, because if it's a road accident, this is the best time, and the illustrations you can hear more or less, you're just not reading on the in books. This is the best avenue to do that at this age, but we are not doing that. We are not taking advantage of that. Mostly we are looking at entertainment.
Very true. Entertainment is fun, and anything exciting attracts our
especially
brain.
for kids.
Yeah. Even for adults, anything that is fun will be attracted to it. We run away from pain and get attracted to fun. And so one of the things that, because I have been able to be on the site and see, and even on the launch, I saw how exciting those books are.
Yes.
Honestly, if we create interest as adults, because we are the ones modeling that behavior to our children, if we create that interest, they will easily catch it. We always say that values are caught, they are not taught. So when you model, they are able to see and, you know, just emulate or imitate what you're doing. So if they see you as a dad come home and you're like, let's sit down from the earliest age possible, believe me, this will be a culture, and it will be passed on. Cultures are passed on. And so if you want this to happen, let's begin. And the basic place to begin is at home, not in school.
Lona, you've talked about it was a 3-year program, and we almost done for the 3rd year this year.
Yeah, this is the last year.
What are some of the challenges that you faced in the 2 years, let's say 2.5 now, and how you are able to maneuver through them? And why don't you think of maybe scaling it up after you've checked how the 1st year went, the 2nd year went, now we are on the 3rd year?
Yeah.
So
I think our biggest challenge in the 1st year, and we completely didn't know, I think we're a snacking company, and we for us, we chose a path that we felt was really relevant and we wanted to push it. Our first year, the biggest issue was around author rights, and especially around copyrights. And I think initially we thought as a company, we are doing something that is, generosity, and we are driving that, kindness and voluntarily sharing your stories. But I think with time we started learning there's also copyright involved, there's also authors' rights involved, and it brought up a whole issue in Kenya, which is a real problem in terms of are our artists paid their logical rights. But we did partner with Kenya Copyright Board, and we also partnered with BCLB to just ensure that we were covering the laws in terms of copyright laws. So what we've been doing right from the first year is that we do select stories, the final stories, we pay them. We pay the authors, and it allows us to ensure that these 3 years, the books are not being sold, and that kids do have free access. I think by last year now, we scaled it up a bit in terms of printing some of those books, because we realized not every parent has access to internet and not every parent has a smartphone. So we started thinking, how do we reach those kids? And we did publish books. We might again publish some of those books this year. And what we're doing is that we're giving them to the kids for free. But I think every year has been really amazing in terms of how people share their stories and some of these challenges that we came across. It's about, partnering with people, partnering with Luna in terms of understanding, is our content right? Is our content actually relevant for kids? And are we still ensuring that as much as we are exposing them to all these books, all those books are safe and all that stuff? I think now from next year, we are on another journey. Like I said, the Cadbury brand embodies generosity. We are moving on to something that is really interesting. There are so many things in society that affect us as a community. And we do feel like 3 years is enough. We will still leave the library. We are not going to touch it. We are still open to partnerships. But from next year, watch this space. We are doing something different.
Luna, if my 12-year-old daughter comes and tells me she has been exposed to an ethical online content, it could be a song, could be a video, could be anything, what are some of the steps that I can take as a parent, or what steps should a parent take? Some of the sites are not even Kenyan.
Okay, first of all, you should be concerned and very grateful that your child has told you they think that they have been exposed to something that is not ethical or maybe age appropriate. And so start by having a conversation around it. What does it mean? What did it mean to the child when they saw that content? Because some content is so too memorable that they even start having nightmares.
Yes.
Some of them will start having a lot of thoughts around it. And so you may need to ask yourself, or have a conversation and ask the child, what did this content do to you? And as well as you understanding the content, because sometimes they describe things that you have no idea about, and even if you went to watch, maybe it's no longer available. I've had children who've told me, I saw something and I tried to go back to that site and I couldn't find it. But they are vividly explaining it, and the problem was it was giving them nightmares. And so I had to go back and now undo what they saw by using some psychological techniques to just help them undo. But having conversations around it, first of all, makes the child not to feel guilty, because I don't think they consented to just seeing it. First of all, because they're minors. So let them, when you have that conversation around it, they will understand that I can tell dad anything, first of all. When I'm in danger, I can run to dad and tell them. And then dad will not, beat me up just for doing this, but helps me understand that this is what happens. When you tell a young child that the chances of you watching this and then another site pops up that leads you to another site, helps them that understand that then I should not even watch in the first place. And if I've watched, let me stop and have someone help me not to access something else after this. So those conversations are very important. But I'm also hoping that you as a dad has quite some capacity or knowledge on how to lead this conversation. If you're not able to, then take them to someone who can help you navigate that space. Because they need to understand the danger of what they are calling, or what is called unethical, and the magnitude of the danger. So that they're not just thinking, I only watched once, so moving on. So they know that this has a potential bigger danger than just what they saw. So having conversations around it is important. Parents being knowledgeable about the dangers that are around it are also very important. And sometimes not just looking at the issues and not making them bigger than they seem, is also important. So because sometimes a child may tell you, oh, I saw something, and then you make it such a big deal that they think watching anything is just the biggest sin I have ever done, So handle it with the kind of magnitude that it deserves.
All right.
Yeah.
Lorna, what Luna is talking about is quite true in terms of what our kids are seeing, and especially when it comes to pop-ups. And also being in this digital space, coming from confectionery industry, might have posed some of the challenges in terms of cybersecurity?
Yes. I think even as we were starting the digital library, we had to make sure that we've gone through our legal department, to just ensure what does the law say about data protection, how can we make the website more secure for kids in such a way that we're not getting these pop-ups. We are advertising in places that are secure. First, as a company, we don't advertise to kids. We do have a strict policy against that, because we believe kids are not the decision makers, or they don't have the money to do the purchasing. So we only advertise to adults, and that's why even for our library, we do encourage that parents, so that we bring those families together. We do encourage that a parent should be the one to go there, or a minder to go there with the kids to show them. So that, but we've worked really hard behind the scenes to ensure that it's a safe space. The pop-ups don't come up because we don't want people to click on them, but also the fact that there's an adult who can also start controlling in case they start, going onto other platforms that are not needed. So that's something we really, really check very clearly to ensure it is a safe site.
Luna, as we wrap up, a lot of parents are not discussing this issue of cybersecurity with their kids, and especially when it comes to entertainment, because most of them are geared towards entertainment. I would like you to talk to parents in regards to cybersecurity, because the same way you find parents not talk about issues, corruption, issues, menses, issues, road safety. That is why sometimes we are in a fix when we come to these issues.
Okay, for parents, again, sometimes it's not because they don't want to talk about it, but they don't know what to say. Cybersecurity, IT is very complicated so for some people. Sometimes we don't know what to say. We don't know even what to deal with. First of all, we don't even know how kids are bullied online. We don't know what happens when we talk about cyber security. We don't even know what it is. So that lack of knowledge sometimes is to our disadvantage. We don't know what to say. So even when a child comes up is when you're like, oh, you were bullied. How did that happen? Who did it? How did they access? So because of how we are a bit behind when it comes to this. So it's important that parents get some information. And I know there's a lot of talk about it. There are many times I switch on radio stations and I hear people talking about cybersecurity. So it's important that we get some of this information so that by the time we are talking to our children, we have some information about it. Even if it's not too much, we know where it's coming from. We know how we can, even if it's a little, just how to protect our children from some of these attacks that could be there, so that we can also put measures in place, protective measures even before they get there. So it's important that we get that information. By getting involved in what our children also do, it's also important. What are some of the trends that are happening? I talk to my young adult children and ask them, what are the trends right now? And they tell me, this is what's happening, or this is what's happening. Before I ever knew that Snapchat disappears, I just used to think it's another WhatsApp that I can read information. So they tell you some of these things. And so you are able then, after that, be able to check how how are they affecting the young people? Because I work with children a lot, I have to be in that space a lot. So I remain curious most of the time, just asking what's happening, anything that has happened, how did it happen? Then if I don't know, I ask the experts that, how do you deal with such a thing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Final words, Lorna.
I think final words, it's really important for us to instill the reading culture in our kids. And if you've not started early, I think you can start anytime. Yeah, the Cadbury site is a good place to start. I'm not promoting the site, but it's a good place to start, especially we can't continuously keep buying books. And even like Luna said, sometimes we just don't know what books we're supposed to be buying. Yeah. The Cadbury site is a good place to start. It's linked in very well with the CBC system, because I've seen the CBC system is actually asking parents to buy, like local authors and local stories. So my last words is, let's bring families together. Let's as parents, let us start reading with our kids. Let's make evening time and that bonding time more important. And yeah, just record our voices and have something that your kids can listen to even when you're away.
Indeed, personally, I do support that, because at the end of the day, we really need to be informed. And the digital space is a good platform to begin. Well, that's where we put a cap on KBC News Check. Been with Lorna and Luna. Lorna and Luna, apologies. But the full names is Lorna Kamemba, who is a senior category brand manager at the Cadbury's, more specifically on chocolates and biscuits. And we also had Luna Odawa, who is a children's psychologist. Earlier on, we had a State of the Nation, but now we do thank you so much indeed for keeping it KBC. That's where we put a cap. Thank you for joining us. My name is Bentroy Njue, and Anwangeshi is our sign language interpreter for this bulletin. I'm giving the baton to the Swahili desk. I see Khalid Abdullahi, who is on standby with Krunzi Mashinani and Tamrini. Thank you so much for watching. Let's continue the conversation on our socials.
Honest, and I want you to tell me the truth right now. What did